It's the Jaylen Brown show. He doesn't get enough love? Okay, we're going to give him plenty of love. And I love the way he's been talking in the media after 3 really good games, 2 spectacular games. We're going to talk about all of that, how he's communicating with Jayson Tatum, and the thing they need to say to each other that'll make everything right. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day, and I'm here for you every day with a free, fresh podcast that shows up directly to your device. Whatever app you use, this show is there, so if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that. If it's your first time, welcome aboard. Hope you enjoy the show. Really appreciate you checking the show out. Welcome back to all the regular listeners. Thank you so much for being here, making your first listen every day. Show's available on YouTube as well. If you don't know that, check it out there. Hop in the comment section. It's a good growing community of Celtics fans that are hopping in there and having a real good conversation. I'm John Karalis, former professional basketball player. Now I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I also wrote a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. So all of that is to say I probably know a little bit about the Celtics. And today we're going to talk about Jaylen Brown. This is going to be the Jaylen Brown episode. We don't give normally, I think, just across the board enough love to Jaylen Brown. I have some thoughts that I've shared in previous podcasts about Jaylen Brown and where the Celtics are, and maybe the Celtics should do more Jaylen Brown here coming up. So the whole episode is about JB. Some of the comments that he's been making. I've had, the other day, I was listening to him yesterday. I was listening to him and I thought, man, I kind of like the way JB is sounding. So we'll talk about all of that coming up here. First, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Big show, which means I got to bring in the big guns. Tom_NBA.
I should not do that. We should tamp that down a little bit. The guns in the NBA right now are probably
I'm sorry.
Not where you want to.
Do I have to check into a counseling thing in Florida?
No, I think you need to. For like a day and a half, and then you get to go on Jalen Rose's show, and it's all good.
Yeah. Hey, I'm all for John Morant. I'm certainly everybody knows me. I am not downplaying counseling. No. I am wondering how you go through counseling for something like that in a week. But hey, intensive program. Hopefully things are better. But
no question.
We'll see about that. In the meantime, Jaylen Brown has been great over the past couple of games. It's been great all season. There's a conversation to be had about him making an all-NBA team, and obviously that helps him out financially, helps the Celtics out because they can offer him the most money. He can stick around. But I think one of the things that's come out of the past couple of games is, the Celtics really get away from him too much down the stretch. And one of the things that we were texting about it after the game. My feeling is that the Celtics are kind of off kilter a little bit. They're not in there. They're not sharing the ball. They're not playing team basketball right now, generally speaking. And I think Jayson Tatum is off. And I think he's trying like hell to get back into a groove. This is what Jaylen was saying. We're spending too much time trying to get into our own rhythms right now. So I think that's something that he's talking to Jayson Tatum about. Or talking about Jayson Tatum there. You've got when Jaylen gets the ball, he's like, well, no one passes me the ball in the last 2-3 minutes. So I got to go do it all right now. I got to go create for myself because it's the only shot I'm going to get. And then he gets himself into trouble. And the Celtics are taking the ball out of Marcus Smart's hands, which has a tangential effect of, hey, if Smart, your point guard, isn't finding guys, look, part of your point guard's job is to say, Tatum has really gotten like 2, 3, 4 shots in a row here. I'm going to call something for Jaylen. I'm going to call it. You as a point guard have to recognize these things and say, all right, we're getting away where it's too one person heavy. This is like you go back to the old Rondo thing with Ray Allen and Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. We'd be like, okay, it's Ray's turn to get a couple of shots. Okay, now it's P's turn to get a couple of shots. Now KG needs to get a couple. That was really like good point guarding. With the Celtics just saying, hey, Jayson, you got to get the ball in your hand. Jaylen, you got to get the ball in your hand. Think they're taking the ball out of everybody's hands because now you're saying, all right, scorer with the ball in his hand. Well, what's he going to do? He's going to go try to score. So those three things are combining for real end of game misery. So with all of that said, Tom, what do you think about all
that? Well, I mean, I think, you look at point guard play, right? And that's one of the reasons why Chris Paul's always been so great, right? Like, I know he rubs some people the wrong way, but like just that almost computer algorithmic knowledge of like, okay, spreading the ball around the right way. Okay, now it's time for me to score a few buckets. Like, there's a reason Chris Paul has never averaged, like 30 points in it. I mean, part of it's that's not his game, but also part of it is just like he is a game manager, and that is what you have to entrust your point guard with, right? I thought it was interesting yesterday. To your point, late in the game, I think it was I think it was the possession that Grant Williams saved. The Celtics did get the ball to Jaylen, and Jaylen made a really smart, really good basketball play. He drove, beat his guy, drew Marcus Smart's help, and then he passed to Marcus Smart, who was wide open for a three, and Smart missed it. And that's kind of exactly what you're talking about, is I mean, in that situation, Jaylen didn't try to create for himself because he hadn't gotten the ball. He made the exact right basketball play, and he found, you've said this before, turning Smart into a shooting guard just negates the good things that he does. And that's exactly what happened there. Smart had to take that shot. It was a wide open shot. When you start passing out of wide open threes, your offense gets bogged down, gets into trouble. That 100% would have happened in that situation. So Smart takes the shot and he misses. Good for Grant Williams for saving that thing. I mean, phenomenal play. But that, to your point, I mean, I think that's kind of where you start to look at the Celtics offense, especially late in games, and just it's been so Tatum heavy for so long, and you understand why, right? Because Jayson Tatum is a great basketball player who has built up all of these late game chops and knows how to operate. He's comfortable operating in those late game moments. It's just so much easier for your offense to go isolation down the stretch because then you don't have to make a bunch of like kind of nervy passes, a bunch of nervy dribbling where you might turn it over. It makes sense to go to Jayson Tatum, but like making it 100% Jayson Tatum. I think you were the one when we were texting yesterday about this, making it 100% Jayson Tatum instead of like 80-20 Jayson Tatum or 70-30 Jayson Tatum. That is where I think you start to wonder a little bit like, well, the Celtics have this other star who is capable of playing at a superstar level and has been for the last few weeks. Like, there's a lot that's being kind of left on the table in that regard. But I think it's like Jaylen's been really good, and I think your point about just the first kind of point you made, the All NBA team is very interesting because I think the Celtics losing these games, like Tatum going on this little stretch here, Jaylen has been so good, but I think the Celtics getting 2 All NBA players partly depends on them being the number 1 seed, right, and kind of having this dominant. So it's kind of this two-sided thing where it's like Jaylen has really shined lately. I mean, this is one of the best stretches of basketball he's played all year. He's shooting last 10 games, he's shooting 38% from 3, like a really good stretch of ball from him. And I'm interested to see how it affects his chances, just given the fact that, the Celtics are now kind of, in competition for the 2-3 seed as opposed to that 1-2 slot.
Yeah. Well, look, All NBA, we'll have to wait and see.
Right.
But I can tell you this. Jaylen has won something much more prestigious this week.
Your respect.
And yes, but The Nissan Most Electric Player of the Week, which is brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. Jaylen Brown was the obvious choice. I mean, I don't know if there's an incentive in his contract for getting the Electric Player of the Week. There may be something that his agent should start building into his contract. But let me say something. 35 points against Minnesota, 43 points against Houston. Go back to the Atlanta game, 24 points on 10 of 18 shooting there. Overall, 10 of 18 against Atlanta, 16 of 25, 64% against Houston, 12 of 24, 50% there against Minnesota. He's been shooting well. He has been playing defense. He had 7 assists against the Atlanta Hawks. So it's brilliant. It's fierce. It's brilliantly fierce, just like the Nissan Ariya. And stunningly powerful. Some of the drives, some of the finishes have been incredible for him. I think especially some of the rock the baby lefty layups. This has been a great week, and I think a great two-way week, just like the Nissan Ariya delivers on duality, a combination of fierceness and elegance, beautiful but strong. Jaylen Brown's two-way game has been spectacular. So the 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pin-to-your-seat power and premium intelligence all in one electric vehicle. It's the electric vehicle for people who love to drive. You can shop now at NissanUSA.com. NissanUSA.com for the 2023 Nissan Ariya. We're back with more of the Jaylen Brown episode coming up next. Hey, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making the show your first listen every day. Head on over to the Locked On NBA feed. 2 great podcasts there. Game to Game is going to get you caught up on everything in these games. Very specific stuff from both sides so you can get a real good idea what everybody's thinking and across the league so you can get caught up on the night in the NBA. And then if you want the big picture stuff, Locked On NBA, which I host on Wednesdays with Jake Madison of Locked On Pelicans, is a great, I think, podcast for all the big picture coverage of the league. So check those out. 2 great podcasts on one feed. Let's bring Tom Westerholm back in. I was sitting there after this game listening to Jaylen Brown, and the thought popped in my head. I was like, man, I kind of like how he's talking right now. I like the way he sounds. I think, I don't know, this one is, normally I'm trying to analyze and have rational thoughts. This one is just purely off the top of my head and just it feels to me like, he's had these performances. The Celtics are struggling. Maybe he's felt like a little bit of a second banana. I think right now he's like, you know what? It's been me. I've been the guy that stepped up. Everyone else hasn't stepped up. I'm staking my claim here. I'm going out here. I'm speaking like a leader. I'm calling guys out. He had the comment after the Houston game where he said, we can't abandon our team by talking to the officials and not getting back and getting scored on, which people interpreted as a Jayson Tatum thing. That was absolutely a Marcus Smart thing, where Marcus Smart missed the corner 3 against Kenyon Martin, and Martin sprinted back and got the dunk, and Smart was behind him because Smart took, it seemed like forever. I don't know what the hell was going on down there. Both those guys took a long time to get over the half court. But he's calling those guys out. He's talking about people not cheering on the bench. He's calling out the bench for not being active and being part of the game. It's diplomatic but stern. He's not mincing words. He's like, we need to be this way. And he's mixing in some of the, well, I'm being this way. So he is pumping himself up a little bit. So there is a little element of that. But also he's calling the guys out. He's like, hey, this is how we got to be. And I like what I'm hearing from Jaylen. I like the fact that he's stepping up and saying, because that Houston game where he had a great game, I said this in my last podcast with Chad. He had a great game. He had it going. Jayson Tatum didn't have a good game. The team kind of followed Tatum into the malaise. And Jaylen was like, hey, all right, let's go. It's like Animal House where John Belushi's making that big speech. He's like, let's go. And he runs out and no one follows him. It's like, Come on, man. So I think he's kind of maybe he's had enough of that, and he's just like, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and mince words. You guys got to step up because I'm stepping up.
Yeah, I mean, you drew the parallel when we were talking beforehand to Smart calling the team out last year, right? And now it's like now that we're seeing kind of, I mean, we're really seeing this interesting progression over the last like few years with both Jaylen and Tatum. I mean, I think neither of those guys throughout the first little bit of their career, they always had veterans, right? They always had guys who could kind of show them, and now they are taking over that mantle. They're kind of calling people out. They're trying to bring people along, like you said. And I think it's crucial that they be able to do that with each other, right? Like it's crucial that like Jaylen, like you said, he's stepping up in a big way right now. And I mean, I think Jaylen is right when he when he kind of references Tatum, like what you said, like getting into a rhythm matters certainly, but like you do that within the flow of the game, and like your teammates around you are talented enough. Jaylen is more than talented enough to make up the difference if you need to play yourself into like a rhythm by playing within the flow of the game. It's fine. You'll still win basketball games. This team is very, very talented. So, I mean, I think it's really good to Jaylen's. Yeah, you got to remind people like that's that. I mean that we in the media we use these quotes like for our stories and everything, but like players send messages through that too, right? Like players
Absolutely.
like obviously they send messages through the media, and I mean that's a good one, right? Like like, hey guys, come on, I'm doing a lot here. Like I know everybody's kind of tired. I know I know we shot out at like a cannon at the start of the season, and now we're all kind of exhausted after a couple of very long years, but like I'm still in it. Like, come on, be in this with me. That's a good thing to project.
Yeah, and I think that Brown brings up a point that I think well, first of all, it's something I've been saying here is they get away from the things that work, right? We've talked about they get away from the things that work. And I don't know what Marcus Smart is going through. I believe he's being used out of position, and that's part of the problem. But the very easy solution to all of this is play a little bit faster and move. Remember, at the beginning of the season, I asked Joe Mazzulla a question in the press conference, and it's like, you guys actually prevent turnovers by passing the ball more. And he said, oh, wow, I never thought about that. And it was like kind of like a fun little moment that we had, and everybody was busting my balls because Joe had like this moment with me. But they don't do that anymore. Everybody's so worried about, okay, we got to go ISO so we don't turn the ball over. But you turn the ball over when you're going ISO. What was the hallmark of the finals loss? Trying to do too much, getting caught, trying to do too much, isolation, turning the ball over, live ball turnovers going the other way. So I don't know where this whole philosophy of, well, you don't want to pass too much because you don't want to run too much because then you might turn the ball over. You think the Celtics aren't turning the ball over down the stretch? Is that a thing? Do people actually say, how can you say that with a straight face to us and expect us to believe you're going ISO because you don't want to turn the ball over when crunch time turnovers are a problem for these guys?
Yeah.
Right? So don't give me that crap. Move the ball. Run your pick and rolls. Make quick decisions before the defense can react. That's how you prevent the turnovers, by moving the ball and getting guys out of position so they can't get into a passing lane. You've eliminated the passing lanes because guys are in rotation and they're helping. This is the thing. This is kind of what Jaylen's been talking about. Like, let's just play ball. This is what drives me crazy, Tom. It just drives me nuts. It's like, I don't know, it's like talking out of both sides of their mouths down the stretch. And if they just get to that, and I'm not asking for like Princeton offense down the stretch, but one pick and roll isn't enough. You run something. You can make more than 2 passes. You go the whole game without turning the ball over, running that offense. Why all of a sudden in the last 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, is it so risky to play that style of basketball? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's just kind of like the kind of like the commonly agreed upon logic, right? Where it's like, but I mean, realistically, you look at that the game last night, 2 nights ago when you're listening to this, like you look at that game, right? The isolation play that Tatum did was like he tried to shoot a 3 over Rudy Gobert,
Oh
and
my
it was like,
God.
I mean, it was an ugly
Awful.
play, ugly, and like, and
And he
I
had
don't even,
Jaylen
and
Brown
I don't even really
wide open.
respect Rudy Gobert. I just think like like he didn't create anything good, and like you said, Jaylen was wide open over like on the other side of the court. I mean, Tatum kind of started to make his move around like 7 seconds left on the shot clock. So I don't know. Maybe he just like thought that if he passed it, Jaylen would be catching it at like 4 seconds. Like I don't know, but probably would have been better than what he got, because that shot was not like just, I mean, especially on a night where Tatum was what, 0 for 8 at that point. Like, yeah, like it had no chance of going in.
Yeah. This Jaylen Jayson dynamic is really interesting. And he said something interesting after the game about him and Tatum getting together.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that in just a second. First, today's show brought to you by BetterHelp. I referenced it at the beginning of the podcast. I am a big proponent of helping yourself get to a spot where you are helping yourself through therapy. I've done it. I believe in it wholeheartedly, but I know how hard it is because you're sitting there saying, well, it's expensive. I got to go to whichever 2 or 3 people might be around me. I got to drive. I got to take time out of my schedule. No one's going to understand. I've heard it all. I've said it all. I get it. But BetterHelp can actually help you out because it's all done online. Okay. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. You set up and fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched with a licensed therapist. You can do it through text. You can do it through video chat. You can do it through the phone, however you feel comfortable. And if you just aren't clicking, you can just switch to somebody else, which is hard to do in person because now you're like, okay, I've taken that one person out, and now hopefully one of these other people is going to be good. BetterHelp, that switch is super easy, and same idea. You can do it however you want on your schedule. You know that sometimes it's just a fine tuning. I'm not feeling my best. Let me just go talk some things through. Maybe you're feeling worse. Maybe you're feeling some level of anxiety. Maybe you just need to deepen your sense of self-awareness and understanding. Why do I do these things? Why am I like this? I've said that to myself many, many times. Why am I like this? Well, that's where therapy comes in. So discover your potential with BetterHelp. You can visit BetterHelp, that's HELP.com/lockedon today. You can get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. After the win over Minnesota, Jaylen Brown said that he is talking a lot more to Jayson Tatum. And talking a little. I think people want to make more of that, but people want to read into that a little bit. Like, well, why weren't you talking before? What was going on before? They're different people, right? They're different. I think everybody can agree that Jaylen and Jayson have different personalities, right? They're different folks. Jason's got a kid. He's going to be worried about certain things. Jayson does a lot of ads, so he's going to be busy. Jaylen has talks that he does and things. They're different people. They have different focuses off the court. But Jaylen said that he and Tatum are going to spend more time together, talk some things through. And I think some of the things that we just talked about in that second segment, like grab a bottle of wine or a box of wine for all, just grab something good. You guys are both rich. Get some of the good stuff, crack it open, sit in. One of you must have a home theater. Grab some game fill. Just crack that bottle open, or what am I? I say crack that bottle open. I'm clearly a sommelier over here, Tom. Uncork the bottle, sniff the cork, and talk about, hey, Jayson, why didn't you pass me the ball here? I think that more than the coach, this type of stuff at the NBA level, you're professionals. You guys figure this out. You guys figure out why you're going my turn, your turn too often down the stretch. You guys figure it out. You're the leaders. You can be Joe Mazzulla can say it till he's blue in the face. You guys on the court actually have to do it. So I like hearing that he and Tatum are going to be spending more time together, communicating better, and hopefully finding some common ground, some results.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting way of looking at it, right? Because like in the NBA, you're professionals, right? You're all like, we've talked about this before. You're all adults. Like, you have a coach, and your coach is going to tell you how to do things, but like the onus is on the players to a much larger extent,
Right?
Because
100%.
because you're grown-ups. Like you've
Right.
done real world things. You have a child. You probably have, like you have houses that you own and stuff like, like
businesses that you run.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like you have a clothing line. You might have, you're doing Rakuten commercials or whatever, like you are an adult now. And part of that is like, okay, you're in this very high powered, high paying profession with a lot of pressure, and you have to do it as part of a team with other people. And a big part of that is, like you were saying, like coming together and having these tough conversations that that you might, that I mean, like, I don't know, if I was working, like a lower pressure job, I might not have to have those conversations, right? But like,
Sure.
These things are all happening under a microscope. Like everybody, is asking you questions about this all the time. You need to win games, and you need to like figure out how to do that with the other superstar who's on your team. And I think you're exactly right. Like these guys are different. I think you could probably, like, I have no idea whether they would, classify themselves as, like friends or whatever, but they clearly work well together and have been working well together for a long time. And now it's important that they kind of like work together to sort through this tough stretch. And it's encouraging that they both know the importance of that they both know, like, okay, like we need to talk. We need to like kind of get together. We need to communicate through some of these issues. And I mean, I think if I recall correctly, I think Jaylen said they've already been doing that to an extent. Like they've already been talking. Like, so yeah, I mean, that's good stuff. That's really important. Look, we've said it 100 times. The Celtics season rides on those two figuring everything out together. So, yeah, good. You're talking. Please, you should keep doing that. That's, 2 thumbs up.
You should. I'm a big proponent of talking through things.
Yeah.
Something comes up, you say it, and then even if somebody's pissed off, you work through it. That to me has always been like the best course of action for most problems. There's a very real discussion for these guys to have with one another. And it's just like any relationship. And like you said, these guys I don't think they're friends necessarily off the floor. They've said that. They've said as much over the course of the year. Like, I compare them to any friends that I've had at work that are, you go, you have a great time. I like the people. I've worked in many newsrooms. I've really liked a lot of these people. And when I left work, hey, every once in a while, maybe we'd go grab a beer after work on a Friday. But most of the time, I wouldn't see them on the weekends. I wouldn't be, I have other friends, closer friends that I would be hanging out with, or a significant other. That's in the NBA. Kids. You have kids. In the NBA, you have precious little time at home during the course of the regular season. Yes. These guys are on the road for 2 weeks right now. You think Al Horford sits there and is like, I can't wait to go home and hang out with Robert Williams? Like, no, man. He's going to go home to his wife and, I don't know, 10, 15 kids that they have now. Whatever. It's like that they're going to go and live a normal life like a family would, because this is work.
Yep.
This is work for them.
And you are adults now.
And you are adults. This isn't like when I was in college and if the coach called my room it was like, oh no, what's coach want? Or if coach said, hey, you do this, and we were like, oh, yes, coach, yes, coach. That's not how the NBA works at all. At all. Maybe you get a little bit of that with an OKC Thunder team. You know, you get some of that.
No, you know who's getting it right now is the Spurs. Like
right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great example. That's a great example of a bunch of guys like when Greg Popovich, Greg Popovich came in here and gave me advice to talk about like how to do the podcast. I'd be like, yes, coach. You know, and I'm damn near 50, so I get it. I get it. But these guys, you have to work things out, and you can fold in Marcus Smart and you can fold in other guys. It's on them. Mazzulla can say what he wants to say, and he can have a role in this too, and assistants can have a role in this too. But when you're in your 20s at this level, making the money that you're making, figure it out. Figure it out amongst yourselves. And I would rather have a bunch of guys get together, and you can call it a players only meeting if you want, but I would rather have a bunch of guys get together and hash it out and come to a place where they agree, rather than a coaching edict where everybody begrudgingly is doing something.
Yeah. I mean, I started to say something that I completely blanked on the guy's name. That sounds like Jim Boylan, right? Like,
yeah.
The edict stuff. It's like that doesn't work. And
doesn't work.
And there's kind of this fine line that you can try to walk. And that, like, you know, I think like last year, like Ime kind of walked where it's like, it's not quite an edict. It's he'll yell at you when and call you a bunch of bad words if you're doing if you're doing something wrong. But that's a little bit different than just kind of being like, it's my way or the highway. That's like, hey, pull your head above water, right? like
nicely edited in your head.
Yeah. Like that. My head is very much above water. Like that. You know, there's a big difference, I think, between those two things. And anyway, that I think the edict stuff sounds a lot more like the just stuff that doesn't.
It's
work
why Patino didn't work. It's why Calipari didn't work.
Right.
And some of these college coaches, these career college coaches, aren't going to work because you've done it a certain way, and you have edicts. You say, we're going to lay down the law. And people, these pros are like, you got to have a certain cachet. Now, Ime did have some of that cachet because he'd been in the league. He was in the league. He knew what he was talking about.
And it was a different kind of cachet too. Like
it was a different kind of cachet.
The reason Brad Stevens did work is because he didn't do any of that stuff.
Right. If I went in there and took Ime Udoka's script or any other successful guy and said the exact same thing, and let me get that, let me capture the essence of it and say all the same things, they'd be like, screw you.
Shut up.
Who the hell are you to tell us this? Yeah. Like, it's the same thing Ime was telling you guys last year. But like, yeah, but that's Ime. It wasn't what he said. It was who was saying it and how he said it. That's the thing. And I do think Joe Mazzulla actually does have some of that. They do respect him. I don't want to confuse people and say Joe doesn't have that. Don't mistake the fact that Joe doesn't come out and blast these guys in the media as he doesn't go behind the scenes and say, you know, whatever, you know, he's not tough on these guys. But all that said, side note, I think Mazzulla is actually stepping up some of that too, because last night he was like, just because we won doesn't mean I'm happy with it. So that's a kind of a little bit of a departure from him. I think he's starting to get a little bit tougher too. But regardless, the bulk of this has to be figured out between the players.
Yep. Yeah, right. Exactly. That's the larger point here. I sidetracked us a little bit with the Jim Boylan comparison, but the point being, like, these guys are adults who can figure it out, who can you know, just adult their way through it. Like you have to win games. You've learned how to win a lot of games. Like I looked this up the other day. You know what's kind of crazy is, like, you go back to the 2010 season, right, where the Celtics were like the 4 seed or whatever, and then they found a way to kind of storm through the playoffs. That Celtics team has been to like consider, like, I think it was 1 or 2 fewer conference finals than this current Celtics team has. Like, you want to talk about, like, yeah, obviously there's a bit of a regular season malaise going on here, and maybe that extends to the playoffs. That's certainly plausible. But, like, these guys are adults who have been in the NBA for a long time and who have been in a lot of playoffs and know how to win playoff games. Like, I know they're young, but like if they get together and they talk and they kind of figure it out, I do think that there's a reasonable chance that they can kind of come together and still put together the type of playoff run that they want to put together.
As long as they come together and they say, okay, do we trust each other?
Yep.
Then yes.
Yep.
I trust you to give the ball up. Like Jaylen should be like, if you trust me to get the ball back to you, I will. But I got to trust you to give the ball up to me.
Yep.
And if you get to that point, then they're golden. Seriously, that one sentence or those two sentences, however you put the punctuation in there, is the difference between this team flaming out and potentially winning a title.
Yeah.
If those guys trust each other and trust each other to move the ball, that's it. I've said it a million times. You move the ball, everybody gets a shot at it. The right guys are going to get the right stats. It's an irrefutable law of basketball. When the ball moves and everybody gets a chance at it, the ball movers will move it, the shooters will shoot it, the rebounders will rebound it. That's always going to happen. But you've got to play basketball the right way. If you don't, then the wrong guys, Marcus Smart, are going to be shooting it. That's not what you want. The wrong guys are going to be trying to passing it, which is like Jaylen sometimes, right? You're trying to do too much. The wrong guys are going to be trying to rebounding it, which is guards being stuck inside trying to rebound and your wings not rebounding well. Move the ball, play the right way. It's all going to fall into place. These guys just got to believe it. Jayson Tatum's got to put this slump out of his head. Jaylen's got to put the lack of crunch time touches out of his head. Smart's going to put whatever injuries or everything else out of his head. It's all going to go out of their heads. Focus on playing good basketball. Get to that point, they're fine. They're fine. They're good. That's a title team. But if they're not, man, it's like a second round exit waiting to happen.
Yep, it's a second round upset for sure. Before we wrap things up, can I give you the one Jaylen stat that I didn't get to use that I think is like just kind of a cool one? So of every NBA player on NBAstats.com averaging 10 or more drives per game, so that's roughly 50 players. Jaylen is 7th in field goal percentage on those drives. Wow. And that's like guys like, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like who are below him, right? Like any Devin Booker, like guys like that are below him. It's like I want to say it's if I remember, it was like DeMar DeRozan, a couple of guys who haven't played as much, like Zion and Kawhi,
sure,
and then like a couple of other, like Luka was one of the guys who was above him, but like he is as elite at driving as anybody in the NBA. He is that guy.
Yeah.
When it comes to getting to the basket, and I just thought that was a cool stat, and he's been great getting around the rim. So that's my
that's it.
That's my finale.
All right, that's a good one. We're gonna end on that one. Jaylen Brown, important to Boston's success.
He's so good, man.
He is so good, man. If these guys play to their potential, dear God, I wish they could see it the way we see it, because
they can. They did it for all of November.
I guess, yeah, but that's a whole other thing, which I've talked about in the past. All right, we're gonna wrap it up there. I want to thank you, Tom Westerholm, for hopping on.
Appreciate you, man.
Tom_NBA on the tweets. Remember, tomorrow, the Friday night game, which is tonight when you're listening to this podcast, but Friday night game is a 10 o'clock start, which means I'm not going to get a chance to do a post-game podcast. If for some reason something incredibly amazing, ridiculous happens, I can record something quick on Saturday afternoon, but that there's a game Saturday night as well. So my plan is not to do bonus podcasts this weekend. I'm just letting you guys know up front, not to do bonus podcasts. What I'll do is on Sunday, I will try to record early and have that just kind of be the all-encompassing. That'll be the Monday podcast, just an early drop that covers everything. So that's the plan. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. It's on every app out there. Watch the show on YouTube. Ring the bell. Get notified when I drop a new video. And then you can hop into the comment section. Join the conversation there. And I would love it if you shared the podcast. Spread the word. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell your social media followers. Tell random people on the street they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.